Hey everybody, my name is Michael, and I've been an email marketer for more than 11 years now. And I actually fell into email marketing by accident, which means I had no clue what I was doing at the beginning. I wish someone would have walked me through these 4 important steps for beginners, and I would have done a lot better work in my early days. So follow along, and I hope these will help you. Lesson number 1 for beginners is learn how to segment your customers. So since we're all beginners, you might not know what a segment is. A segment is a group of people or contacts in your database that share similar characteristics. And you use those similar characteristics to group them and personalize messages and experiences. As you get more data around your customers, you're able to build more advanced and personalized segments out of your database. As a beginner, this probably makes sense to you, but what I think is often misunderstood and undervalued is how intentional you need to be with your segments. So let me just give you a few examples of some segments that are the most important to me and why I think they're so important. The first segment you should build is one that gives you all of your ideal customers. An ideal customer is a very important definition for the business, and you're probably not the one that comes up with it. It's very likely your VP of marketing or even the executive level have defined an ideal customer. They know who the best person is that they're trying to sell to. Well, once you have that definition, you need to know how many people match that criteria in your database. When you're building your ideal customer profile, some typical attributes you're looking at are: what industry do these people work in? What is the title? What is the role? What is the seniority this person might have within their organization? Do they live in a certain part of the world? Are there certain personal attributes like age or gender that are important? Soon you'll be able to tell a pretty good story of who you're looking to target. Now, particularly in B2B, this can get complicated quickly because buying decisions aren't made by a single person. They're usually done by committee. So there are several individuals that you're selling to with different roles and responsibilities within the buying process. So very often, your ideal customer profile may not be a single segment. You might have to have multiple segments for people with different roles in the buying cycle to get a good understanding of who you have within your database. Another segment that is important and pretty typical in a lot of organizations is the stage with which a prospect or customer is engaged with your brand. Stages vary from company to company, but usually it's some element of lead, qualified lead, opportunity, and customer. There's variations there of customers that have left or the opportunities that were closed and lost, but very often, depending on what an individual already knows about your brand or the experience they've had with your products, will determine what you're going to send to them. You need to be intentional about defining these stages. I would not encourage you to use blanket stages that you find online. Figure out what's right in your business. If you're in software, what sort of level of activation usage creates different stages within your product? Think this through from the customer's angle. Lastly, I would also build segments around engagement, activity within your database. This is important because you'll probably find pretty quickly that your leadership team wants to send some sort of campaign to as many people as possible. The risk there is the more you broaden your message, the less relevant the message becomes, and your likelihood of deliverability, spam complaints, and unsubscribes grow. I like to look at the number of contacts that have opened or clicked an email in the last 4 months. If I'm emailing those people consistently and they haven't opened any message within the past 4 months, the likelihood that they open something in the future is low, and I'm going to do something about that. Maybe I remove them from the database, maybe I mark them as a non-marketing contact so I never email them, but the point is to do something intentional about it. Another view of this is to know which of your contacts have opted into communications and which have opted out. Growth at all costs has been the story for the last 10 years or so, which means there's been a lot of list building from vendors like ZoomInfo. If you're buying lists, that means contacts are not expecting to see messages from you. And that's a higher risk. Knowing what percentage of your database is a higher risk is important. And ultimately, it's your job to start creating offers and programs that entice people to opt in. The more you can generate inbound, the easier your job is going to be. So you'll have to work with other departments within the marketing team to make that happen. As for lesson 2, now that you know your ideal customers, you need to learn how to build relevant content for them. This is where you have to do a little bit of homework to really understand the life of your ideal customer. What is their problem? Why is it so important to them? And what is it about your brand that helps them solve that problem? The more that you can understand and put yourself in the shoes of your customer, the more likely it is that you'll build content that's relevant for them. The danger with email marketing often is we make it a checklist channel. Someone just wants to send something, we put a list together and blast it out. We don't intentionally think about relevant content, which ultimately leads to low engagement rates. So how can we ensure that something's relevant? Well, first, match the intent with which contacts came into your database. Did they ask for an ebook? If they did, don't send them to sales. What if they asked for a demo? Get them to a demo as fast as possible. Contacts often tell you what they want from you. Make sure you deliver on that first. Then use that understanding about their life and use cases of your product to make the content sing. For example, SaaS companies typically have some kind of aha moment that they're looking for. It's the moment when customers get the value and purpose of the product. It usually involves the most painful part of the customer use case. And if you know how to get people to that point with your content, you're going to be a powerful part of the customer journey. Okay, we're on to lesson 3 now, which is know why people open emails in the first place. Most articles online are going to tell you it's the subject line and that's it when it comes to emails. But let's give you a little scenario first. Let's pretend I send you an email. Then shortly thereafter, you get an email from your mom. Which email are you more likely to open? Please tell me you said your mom. It's probably your mom. Why? Because you trust her. She loves you. She could probably send you anything and you'd likely at least see what it was about. So the principle there is trust. You tend to trust people that are more close to you, like friends and family, more than strangers. And you tend to trust people more than you do brands. So that relationship with your contact is important. Understanding that you're building a relationship may change the way you send your emails to them. Will it ever be as good as a relationship with their friends? Probably not. But you can build trust over time. So put your best foot forward in building a relationship that they can trust. Now, that does relate to subject lines a little bit. Let's dive into that. If you're going to build trust, then do trustworthy things in the subject line. The subject line is one of the first places where companies actually lose trust. How? Well, clickbaity subject lines. If you promise one thing in the subject line and deliver something else in the body of the email, you're going to lose some trust. Don't do it. There's also a bunch of other hacks and tactics out there to try and drive more conversion. Many of them are spammy and you should avoid them. Don't use all caps within your email subject line. I would limit the number of exclamation points you use. I would avoid using overly urgent language all the time. But what you'll find is pretty quickly, if you're making sure you're not sending spammy subject lines, it's pretty easy to be boring. And boring will be the ultimate killer of an open. So be creative. Have fun building your subject lines. Do something to stand out. You can do this without being a spammy email marketer. One other note on subject lines I want to add. It's actually about the preview text. Being intentional about the preview text is important. Most senders forget about it, which means it just pulls in content from the email. You can actually build your preview text to have a short, concise phrase and then push all of the rest of the content away. It's easier to read, it's cleaner, and it helps the message stand out. Here's a few examples of companies that do it well from my promotions tab. You can see all of that space, the content is clear, and since the content is clear, I have a better idea of what I'm getting into when I open the message. Again, that builds trust. Now for lesson 4, you need to learn how people read emails. Spend some time studying. You can study by reading online articles, of course, but this is where a little bit of A/B testing actually comes in handy. That's part of your study. Experimenting with how people engage with your email. 2 quick things that I've learned as I've done a bunch of experimentation and study. First, adding too many CTAs typically hurts your engagement rate. There's this counterintuitive thing in marketing where we think options actually help people. So if we give people more options, they'll more likely find the thing that's right for them. This actually doesn't happen. Presenting more options overwhelms contacts. They're not sure what they're supposed to do in the first place. This creates friction, which means that they're less likely to actually do something about it. If I give you one CTA, you know exactly what you're supposed to do and just have to make a decision on whether you're going to do it or not. The data typically shows people are more likely to do something about it. One other thing I've learned over the years is I need to be intentional about the content that shows above the fold. People scan their emails. They'll open them quickly and swipe through. So you want the most important stuff at the top. If you scroll through your inbox right now, you'll see that a lot of important parts are below the fold. This includes CTAs, or the offer that was presented in the subject line. That simple requirement of forcing users to scroll creates friction that often eliminates their ability to go to the next step. There's a bunch of other little tactics, like making sure to keep your paragraphs short, using left aligned where possible. There's a lot of interesting ways people read content online, and you want to try and make it as easy as possible for them. I'm going to link a resource that I found really helpful as I was learning in the description below. Read through it a couple of times. I think it'll change how you craft the functional design and write your emails. And there you have it. If you can master those 4 aspects of email marketing quickly, you'll be well on your way to results that beat the average. And as a reminder, if you're unsure on how well you're doing at any of these things, you can bring me in as a consultant and we'll explore those together. Just shoot me a message on LinkedIn and we'll get something on the calendar.